Hey, this is Albarran. Welcome back to my channel. On today's interview, I have my longtime friend, pastor, coach, mentor, all the above, Neal Oates Jr. on the show today. And he's a very successful author, coach. He speaks in front of thousands of people on real estate, success, just a great motivational speaker, but also like practically productivity and just how to grow your business. And I think the topic of today's conversation and other things is going to be about positioning yourself, building your brand, whether you're in corporate or whether you have a small business. We all have personal brands. We all have reputations, whether we build them well or we leave them alone and we don't touch them. And so I think whether you're a real estate broker, a coach, consultant, or anybody watching this video, you want to watch and think about how can I position myself, my personal brand as the authority in my space, not just in 2025, but beyond. Neal, thanks so much for coming on.
It's always a pleasure. I'm surprised that you continue to let me come back.
No, you're one of for videos I've done, you're probably somebody that people always give me great feedback on because of the authenticity of our conversation. You can tell that we've known each other for a very long time. But tell me, and even people that have watched you before on my channel, what have you been up to lately? What's different? What's new?
So first, celebrated my wife's 41st birthday earlier this month in February. So that was exciting. Other than that, it has been just continuing to build what you talk about, the brand, being consistent, showing up. Wrote a book earlier this year that was just released on February 17th. So that has been exciting, expanding the coaching business, getting some more affluent clientele, and really just working the mundane, boring, unsexy, tedious stuff that's going to really yield the results. That's it.
Yeah, we spoke about that yesterday on a call or the other day, and it was about sometimes people think, oh, I'm a 10-year overnight success, or how do I get your success in 12, 18 months, right? And I think it's about, like you're saying, doing the boring things, doing things like just maintaining your numbers, keeping things in order. And I think just having clarity on what do I need to do? What are the actions that I need to take every single day to get me closer to that destination? So you mentioned that you coach affluent clientele. What are some of the common things that you see in them, whether they're traits about their mindset or just actions that they take? What are some common things that you see in those clients? So whether they're business owners or executives, what are the things that you see?
The first thing we'll talk about are some characteristics. They are learners, they're students, they're hungry, they're ambitious, motivated. Even if they are fearful or have doubt, they don't allow that to get in the way of their success. And so I think those are the key characteristics that we will see amongst, whether they're affluent or not. The successful individuals are those who have ambition, drive, that want to learn. Many of my clients are older than me, and so they have this level of, or this amount of humility, who are saying, I want to continue to succeed, but the way in which I experience success might look different. I might have to utilize different tools. What I did 20 years ago to make me successful isn't going to help me 5 years from now, right? The principles are going to be the same, but the technique or the medium in which I deliver those are going to be different. So the personalities, the characteristics, that's important. The next thing that I'm really telling anyone who is looking to grow, to thrive, to be better and improve is to remember the basics. And I know it's simple, but what's simple isn't always easy. The role that I feel most of the time is to help remind my clients the little simple things that are so easy to be missed because we have so much shining, new, flashing things trying to get our attention, our money, and our energy.
Right. And so you're a coach, but you're also a speaker. And even when I met you, I wasn't really hearing you doing like literally 1,000+ people seat type kind of like stadiums or event spaces and stuff like that. So I've seen the progress, right? Like step by step. But I think a lot of people, not just with public speaking, but with an online webinar, with the speaking engagement, a lot of the time I hear people think, oh, like that 10 people in a room, that's not worth my time. Like 20 people, no, it needs to be like Tony Robbins, 10,000. So talk to me about your journey just on that side of things through speaking, because I know you were the National Association of Realtor 2024 Instructor of the Year, which is amazing, but you didn't start there, right? So talk about that journey on the speaking side, because I think a lot of people, they're interested in that. They want to pursue that. But then when it comes to taking these little opportunities, they forego them thinking, oh, like that's beneath me. So talk to me about your journey on that side.
First, let's be clear. Even as the 2024 Instructor of the Year for the National Association of Realtors, in 2024, I taught a class with 2 people in it, right? And later that day, I had a second class with 1 person in it. And so because they had booked my class at the same time, that's something that was far more interesting than what I was talking about was going on. The other topic was so interesting that I would rather have attended the other class instead of hearing myself. And so that's the stuff that you don't hear about even while you're experiencing success. If you're going to be honest, if you're going to be authentic, there are going to be times when at no fault of your own, things just don't line up. They don't work out. Now, you talk about the start. I was fortunate enough to start in 8th grade, right, with 4-H and to, take public speaking classes and all of that. But then even as I decided to make the transition and do this professionally, you talk about 10 people in the room. Man, I was recording videos, hundreds of videos with 0 views on them, right? So my whole thing was I just wanted to practice until I got better. I looked at it much like I did in my football career, where I would go back and watch the playback of my speeches, of my communication, knowing that in person, maybe I didn't have to be as animated if there were only 5 people in the room. If I'm going to be communicating on the via video, I have to use big movements. I have to make sure I switch things up, use different tones of voice so I can grab the audience, right? But all of this came through practice. And so now when people say, oh, Neal, you're going to be in front of 3,500 people. I'm like, yeah, but I mentioned this last time. My greatest challenge and my greatest reward is teaching on Saturdays and Sundays in front of our kids ministry with 20 to 70 kids somewhere. And the reason being, as adults, as professionals, as those who are respectful, we will pretend to pay attention even if we're not. Our kindergarten through 5th grade kids, guess what? If they don't like you, they will let you know immediately that you're boring, that your topic sucks, that they have something more interesting, that they should be the topic or that all the attention should be on them. And that forces me, that causes me to make sure that I'm sharp. It forces me to pivot and always be thinking, how can I engage a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old in the same room? If I can get a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old, it's much easier for me to get a 35-year-old single guy and a 50-year-old person who's been married for 20 years. Right. And so I think that once you know the audience and I'm honing my skills, but it is practice, practice, practice. And so now after doing it for 20 years, we're finally starting to get good.
I mean, that's just like anything, just like golf. If you think about a round of golf, ideally, maybe you hit par on every hole, maybe 10 overs. Let's say that's 80 strokes, but at the range, you might hit 800 balls. You might hit driver, 9-iron, you might go putt, you might go chip. And those are just, you're getting your bad ones out of the way and you're practicing when no one's watching. So like you're saying with webinars or speaking or even a real estate deal, if you're an agent, you do a $300,000 deal, your commission's not going to really change your life, but you're getting ready. You know the process, you know how the contract should work, you know the pitfalls so that when a $3 million client comes in, not that it's the same transaction, but you're doing similar work, you're just making 10 times more. I think the issue is a lot of people, they come into any business or endeavor with a little sense of entitlement. That's a big word, entitlement, that, oh, but like I have this degree or I've done this in the past. So like, I don't need to speak in front of 2 people. Like I need the 3,500. That's what I'm set up for. And the thing is when they get those opportunities, if they get them, they're not ready for them because they haven't practiced in front of 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, or just people that didn't want to be there and they're like, you're really struggling to keep their attention. So I think it's that entitlement as well, young and old. I think that's kind of bleeding into not just society, but even business owners and leaders and executives. And so do you see that as well?
Absolutely. So there are a couple things that I do want to share with your viewers. The very first thing was some of the best advice that I ever received. And the best piece of advice that I ever received was always be ready, right? Whatever that ready is, be ready to present anywhere to anyone. So I got my practice, and here's why I could not have a sense of entitlement. My very first engagements were always at the worst times of the night or the event. It was always after or during someone was eating. Listen, after you've eaten or while you're eating, you don't want to listen to anyone, especially someone that you don't know if you like them, and you don't trust yet. And so that was very humbling for me. But then something else that I would share is a caution that I was advised. The worst thing that can happen to a person is for them to receive an opportunity that they're ill prepared for. Because what's going to happen? We're going to fumble, we're going to fail, we're going to mess that chance up. And then because our ego and our self-esteem takes a hit, we start this downward spiral. And no matter how many times or how many opportunities we have, we're going to think about, we messed that first one up. And so I was fortunate enough to have opportunities when no one cared if I failed or succeeded. I was also humble enough and afraid enough to say, hey, I need some help. Hey, what do I need to know? What are some pitfalls that I can avoid? And so from that, and then after experiencing a little bit of success, I started being intentional about building this thing, making sure that I only speak to certain audiences, that I'm making sure that my branding and my messaging fit and that there's an alignment there, because now I'm in front of people who either want what I have or their personalities align with who I am.
Exactly. If you mess up and two people watch it, it literally has no negative effect on you.
No
Maybe
one
the first
cares.
negative comment, you have a little bit of, like you're saying, an ego dump. But people expect, like, if you do a webinar, like the biggest one I've done, I think like 1,500 people signed up for like a virtual webinar. And I was ready to go because I've done them with 5 people, 2 people, 20, etc. But I can imagine somebody somehow jumping into a big opportunity like that and just not knowing their flow and not knowing how to, like, ooh, somebody just said something negative about me and I saw it on the screen. How do I move forward from that? So I think that's just like anything else. But what do you see with people just in terms of speaking? Because that's something that I coach a lot of my clients on. If they have a great message, they have great knowledge, but they don't know how to say it. They don't know what to say or really how to communicate it, especially on a virtual kind of format like this. And so what have you learned? Because you've done a lot of videos, a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of course, kind of like Zoom virtual conferences and that sort of thing. So what are some like, kind of like media things that you've learned? It could be little things like looking at the camera or just mindsets to have, because I think a lot of people are scared. Like you mentioned fear earlier. They're scared of embarrassment. They're scared of, what if I don't know really how to move my hands? Or like they're a little bit, again, they think they're going to be awkward, so they're awkward. So talk to me about maybe advice you've given people or just things you've learned from, speaking so much.
So the very first thing is that eye contact is paramount. And I'm talking here in the US. In different cultures, it might be different. So even right now, I'm looking directly at the camera. And I see you moving underneath the camera, but I don't know really what you're doing, right? So that's just one of those hacks. But then the next thing is, and I believe this has been the biggest stress reliever for me, is that no one really cares about me that much, right? It's not about me. The audience is coming not because of who I am, but because what they hope to get from me. So if I can immediately position myself from a standpoint of, I'm here to deliver value, to add value to them. And the beauty is people can sense when you are trying to add value to their lives. They will hold on. They'll lean in. They will forgive the mistakes that you make. So those are 2 big ones. But the one that is, I think that after the eye contact and then remembering that it's all about the audience and not you as a speaker or presenter, the greatest caveat to any engagement, any interaction is storytelling. Be able, master the art of storytelling. That's how we learn. As human beings, we learn through the spoken language more than any other style. And typically it's through stories. You might not be able to remember some facts or figures or a demonstration that was given 3 weeks ago. However, you can remember stories that were told to you about your aunt, about your nephew, about something that happened that was fictional from decades ago. So if you master the art of storytelling, I believe that's going to be wildly beneficial to you, but not just any storytelling. What is your story? So me, I've come and I've gotten really good at knowing my story. I know what stories, what parts of the stories I'm going to tell and which ones I'm not. I have what we call a life map where my grand entrance, June 10th, 1982, up until today. And so anytime something pivotal happens, something exciting, it could be great or it could be tragic. I put that on my life map, and then I decide which of those events are going to make it into my story. I craft a story about each event. And then based on the audience and the environment, I'm going to already know what I want to say. And here's what you learn as a speaker. It's not important whether the people believe you or not. It's not important whether they think that you know your stuff or not. What's important is they believe that you believe what you're saying. And so if I act as if I have confidence, it removes the majority of barriers from the audience. The reason why audiences don't receive speakers are because the speaker is not communicating confidently. We know all the time people say, I know this for a fact. And you be like, you sure? That sounds very wrong. They're like, I know it. And they will make you change your mind, even though you were correct, because they were more confident than you. And so if you build your confidence, build the confidence through your storytelling, know what your stories are, your public speaking will drastically improve in a matter of practice rounds.
No, that's so true. I'm kind of smirking because we watched some, there's these like American murder crime series on Netflix. I know I'm going to bring this somewhere. It's a segue. But some of these people, like you watch them and you're like, you sound like a nut job. They look at the footage from like, of course, them 20 years ago and like maybe they're on a TV show or something like that, right? You can look at just American Murder on Netflix, but some of them speak with such certainty about complete nonsense. I'm like, do they know what they're talking about? Like, and they end up being a murderer, of course, but I'm like, at that point in their life, like I could see why people believe them. They're speaking like it's absolute fact, like this is water, that's water. Like you're saying, it's this self-belief, but it's then bleeding that into, I know what I'm talking about, so you should listen to me and follow me. And because realistically, people want to be led in terms of the majority of people. So leaders are very few and far between, but it's not about what you know or what you can say. It's really, like you're saying, how you say it. So again, there's so many other examples like that. But again, we all have that cousin that just brings facts out of nowhere at Thanksgiving. And you're like, man, you think you're right. Like, I got to look that up. But like, you seem like you know what you're talking about some random stuff,
Yeah. And so what we're talking about right now, the next thing besides building the stories and having the confidence, I encourage people to master their language, right? Master if it's English or Spanish, but once you master your language, I believe that's going to help us. If we have 4 different words for red, right? Knowing which one to use to evoke certain types of emotion. So instead of red, we could say, the sky was the color of blood. Right. And so now we're thinking red, but instead of saying it was a red sky. And so if you can do that and then just remember, we are emotional creatures. And so that's where my brand has really been built on taking practical information, tying emotion into it so that people can feel something. And while they might not remember everything I say, they will remember the feelings. And if I can leave enough positive feelings, then they'll come back and want more of me, because ultimately the goal is to have an audience, to be famous for a few, to have an audience that wants to binge on whatever you're sharing.
Exactly. And we talked about this before we hopped on the recording, but how a lot of coaches and gurus and people online, they like to come up with some quote or some strategy, and they think it's magically theirs or the first human being or being ever to come up with that kind of basic or simple theory or idea. So talk to me about, I know you have, your new book, this is a part of it, but talk to me about that kind of, not just theory, but how you look at that and how you relate everything to, well, that's in the Bible, that's biblical, everything has an origin there. So talk to me about that.
So, well, I would be remiss if I didn't take this alley and oop it. The Affluent Negroes, 7 Principles for Minority Wealth Creation. And no, Negroes is not a bad word. Alex did say it is a strong word, and I like that word strong. But the acronym Negroes the word Negroes is an acronym for the 7 biblical principles for wealth creation. I just threw minority in there because Alex, you know me, if it's not a little edgy, is it really Neal? And so what you're talking about is, I believe speakers, coaches, these gurus, we insult people's intelligence. We act as if you were born last night, as if you can't smell bull stuff. And I'm smart enough to know that people's BS meters are finely tuned. I can't sit here and say, hey, I have created this brand new idea. I've come up with it. It's this thing called gravitas. You mean, like, what is gravitas? It's where if something is here and you let it go, it's going to fall. But it's my original idea. And you're like, that sounds a lot like gravity. No, no, no. It's an A, not a Y. It's totally different. Right? And so I believe that I am just coming from a place. My audiences, my coaching clients, or the students in my room, what attracts them to me is I admit, hey, yeah, I might be the speaker, but I'm also a student. I'm learning with you as I go. When I learn, I'm going to share where I learned it from so that you can go through and do your own research. So we hear about the gurus and the speakers coming up with great ideas, and then they package it up and sell it to you for $19.95 monthly. But you come back and say, okay, well, I want more of that. Where can I get it from? And they're like, oh, well, you got to get the $50 package. And then you've got to get this package. What I'm saying is, here's the source. For me, in my life, the source for a lot of it is the Bible. These are the references, the examples. Go in, do some study. These are the Bible verses. And then if you want to have a discussion, I'm open for discussion. It's not my original idea, but I do have different interpretations. And what I found when people say, Neal, you're really giving us all of the secrets, all of the source. I'm like, yes. Now let's come back for discussion, not for me to reveal anything new to you. And that's worked really well for me. And that's why the business is picking up. That's why opportunities are coming. And as I just believe that ultimately the good guys and gals win.
Absolutely. And I want people to buy the book. You can buy it on Amazon, but what is the general idea? I know that, like, that's a part of it, but what should somebody know if they're interested in the book or just learning more about it? Like, what is kind of the synopsis, just so people have an idea?
So the whole idea, Amazon, go find theaffluentnegroes.com or the Affluent Negroes. You can go to theaffluentnegroes.com for bonus material. But the whole idea is that there are clues, strategies, principles that lead to wealth creation, right? And they aren't secrets. They have been around for millennia. And so if you follow specific principles, you have to win. Much like gravity, it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. Gravity doesn't care about your age or color, how much money you make. Gravity is going to operate, is going to have an effect on everything, regardless. The same thing is true about the 7 principles for wealth creation. Even if you are not a minority, if you network strategically, meaning if you go about making smart, mutually beneficial relationships, you're going to win. And I do want to say, Alex, that when I say wealth creation, once again, we as human beings, we're excited. Wealth is sexy. But when I say win, that could mean if you create network strategically, maybe you just have a better familial situation. Maybe you have less stress and anxiety, right? Maybe your business is better and you have a better foundation. It doesn't necessarily always equate to money. We know that if you educate yourself, which is one of the second principle, if you educate yourself, you're going to know what to look for in the changing environment or economy. We're here in 2025. I know that if Alex continues to educate himself, he doesn't have to worry about what's happening in 27, 28, 29, because we're going to always be learners. And then generating wealth through entrepreneurship, reinforcing resilience, owning it all, excelling everywhere, and serving others. These 7 principles, and here's what I tell everyone, we're sharing these same principles and same idea as Think and Grow Rich, right? We have the same thing as Napoleon Hill, the success philosophy. Same thing, right? It's just packaged a different way, giving credit to the ultimate and original source, and they're coming from the viewpoint, from the lenses of a minority business owner and entrepreneur.
I love that. And like you said, it's Affluent Negroes on Amazon or the website.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Super simple, super easy.
Nice. So before we go, one last kind of unrelated segue, but I just wanted to ask because, of course, like you're saying, you've been my pastor. I met you through Potential Church, and you do it, all day, every day, every weekend. And a lot of my clients, or even people that watch my videos, they're faith-based, they're Christian or Catholic or whatever religion they have. But for what I'm hearing, what I see, there's a lot of, I think, a mental disconnect between I want to build wealth and build financial freedom for my family, but that's evil. But there's something wrong with that. I'm telling you, there's so many amazing people that I've spoken to that, whether or not they worked with me or not, like I knew they didn't start their business or they didn't pursue that thing because they thought for whatever reason somebody told them 30 years ago that it's bad to have money or money is evil. So I'd love if you could just touch on that, because I feel like you're an expert in regards to that, because you could touch on, of course, the financial side, the faith side. So I'd love to hear that before we head out.
So first of all, thank you for throwing that out here, because it is important. I would just encourage everyone to do your research, right? So if you're here on this planet, if you're on this spinning orb that we call Earth, wealth creation is not only an opportunity, it is a responsibility, right? Because, and I'm speaking from my faith, I believe that God, our Father, that he wants all of his children to win. The word says that God came, or Jesus came, for us to have life and have it more abundantly. There are responsibilities that we have especially as believers, to take care of the lost, the poor, the broken, the hurting, the widows, and the orphans. We can't do that if we are broke, right? We can't help. So Jay-Z continues to say, and I continue to quote his verse that says, I can't help the poor if I'm one of them, right? And so people mistakenly misquote the Bible all the time, saying that money is evil. Money is the root of all evil, but there is a key word, the love of money. So here's what I believe. I believe that it is Neal and Alex's and your responsibility to make the world a better place. There are two things that change the world: love, resources. Love and resources. Love can change the world. Finances and resources can change the world. Love alone is not enough. And here's how I know that love alone is not enough, because I believe the greatest teacher in all of history, Jesus Christ, talked about money more than he did about love, salvation, heaven, hell, any of that. Money alone is not enough, because we know that what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose their soul? So you have to have a healthy balance between the two. I just encourage anyone to do your research, right? Go in, and if someone is telling you that it is evil, it is wrong for you to be successful, for you to be prosperous, for you to live an abundant life, the wisest person that has lived that we know of, King Solomon, was also one of the richest. So rich, in fact, that his son, King David, also was a man of power, wealth, and riches. And here's what the Bible says about King David. He was a man after God's own heart, right? And so for us not to walk into this responsibility that we have by doing everything we can to get everything we can to help everyone that we can, then I think we're falling short. And we are going to have to answer to that, or answer for that, especially as believers. Now, Alex, here's what I will say, that for those of us who believe that we can't be holy, righteous, and wealthy, that's up to you to decide. But here's what I know. God will use the wealth, the riches of the unrighteous for his work to be done. I just believe that as a child of the King, of the Creator, that I want to be on the winning, abundant side. I want to enjoy some of the benefits here on this side of heaven. I don't want to wait till heaven to have a mansion and a crown and jewels and all that. I want some of it right here on this side, because that's a witness to the world for them to say, hey, I want what he has. How is it that they get to drive what they drive, live how they live? Ultimately, God gets the glory. God don't want broke people saying, hey, come over here to the broke team. Nobody wants that. Jesus lived on this earth. He knows what it was. He knows what it means to have, like Joseph, to have a coat of many colors, a valuable coat, so much so that his brothers got jealous of him because of the favor that he had. All right, I'm done preaching, Alex. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it. And that's why I wanted to end on that. But Neal, where can people find you on, YouTube or Instagram or your website? I'm sure people are going to want to hit you up.
So on YouTube, Neal Oates, Nealoates. The easiest way to find me on YouTube is to go to nealoates.tv. That's going to take you straight to my YouTube channel, Neal Oates, Oates.tv. You can find me on social media. No ego, but you can find me on all social media as Mr. World Renowned. Mr. World Renowned. I have nealoatesjr.com and then, of course, theaffluentnegroes.com. Or you can just have my assistant, Alex Albarran, just give you all my contact info. I'm still trying to have him pay off these debts that he owe me.
Neal, I love you, man. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Wait. Did you just say you love me?
Yes, you could say that. Yeah.
Man, Alex, I tell you what, boy, the progression that I have seen in you and through you over the years has been nothing short of amazing. So people, if y'all don't believe that people can change, Alex Albarran is the example. I would say, I love you, man. He was like, you too.
I was like, all right, deuces.
All right, deuces, bye, peace. I'm like, nah, man, tell me you love me. Love and finances. We need more love, need more finances. Thank you, Alex. It's always a pleasure, sir.
Hey, you too. Talk soon.